Brucey, did you find a buggy? Did you find a buggy? So I have added to this box. I've got to do something with these today. I'm hoping to process as many as I can and then put the rest in the freezer. And then this is today's harvest. Now you'll see a lot of these are just slightly under ripe. That is because we were supposed to get rain for the next 2 days. But check this out. Oh, there we go. 2 pounds. The first 2-pounder of the year. That is a striped German. Those have been the most monster tomatoes of the year. And here we have a lot of different varieties. This one is beautiful. This is a rose tomato. Look at that. So pretty. My kids aren't here today. They are with my mom, having some grandma time, bless her. And I have a lot of stuff to do. Now I'm still finishing up the last details of my book. Many of you have pre-ordered it. Thank you so much. We have been flabbergasted with the incredible response. My publisher is ecstatic and I am as well. So thank you so much. And my mom took the kids today so that I could work on that, the finishing details of that, but I'm also canning. So I read this thing once that said like habits of highly productive people, and they said they actually don't multitask. They give their entire attention to one task at a time. And I was like, how do they can their tomatoes then? It's a mystery, right, Bear? Right. Many of you have also noticed that Sweet Maya has not been here the last handful of days. He went and helped our friends, the Haulers, to work on their house so they can hopefully get moved into it before their baby comes. I've been absolutely amazed at how much they've gotten done, and he's on his way home now, so I'm super excited about that. I'm glad he got to go help them, but I'm also going to be really glad to have him home. I miss him when he's gone.
I grabbed some weird stuff. I found butternut.
Cool.
And then
yeah,
I just thought all those were interesting looking. Yeah. So
that's awesome. Sibley, Mesta Provence, and Ford Hook Acorn. Those will all be good.
Yeah, I think so.
The okra sure are pretty.
Yeah, they're doing well. Ever since we started like cutting on them more regularly, they've really taken off.
That was beautiful. They look like hibiscus flowers though, because they're cousins. And also, here are the sweet potatoes that are flowering, and these are cousins of morning glories. You can kind of see that as well. Oh, are you coming in? Have you forgiven the high tunnel for that time it made you too hot? All right. I need to get some peppers. My hope is today to just keep my canner running all day. And I'm gonna go ahead and get some salsa going in the oven and then start milling tomatoes. And since I don't have my kids here, I can just sit there next to the canner in the kitchen with my laptop and work in between kitchen tasks. So Ben Turn is out there working on the in-ground garden, and we get a lot of questions about this, especially whenever people are new. But Ben Turn started here as an intern on our farm, and we do have an unusual situation because we create content to teach people how to grow food online. And so a lot of what we're doing here is educating, whereas in a lot of cases where you see somebody has a small farm, they're like marketing their food and stuff. The main thing that we're producing here obviously is education, and then of course we're producing food for our own family, and we give away a lot of what we make to friends and family that are close to us. So when people ask like, how do I go about getting an internship at a farm like yours? If you're looking for an internship at a farm, really you just got to ask and say, do you have some sort of program for this? And for us, he was obviously the exception. We don't have just a ton of work to do since it is a small farm, but we did need some help because of how much time we spend producing content. And he's been such a blessing to us. He is, it's hard whenever you're having somebody come and spend this much time, because this is also our home, where our family is, where we're raising our kids. It's not just a place of business. So it was definitely an interesting dynamic, and he's been with us now for about 1.5 years, so from the very beginning, from when we first met him. This year, we're doing something just a little bit different with the gardening. Now, typically, the gardening is It's my baby. I'm the one who makes the decisions, the designs, the plans, and then I have Maya and Ben Turn and our kids help me put everything in. Because obviously we're doing a really large scale. We have moved past the days where I did all of this by myself. And you can look back over the last few years. Sorry, I thought I was walking through a spider. You can look back over the last few years and kind of see the transition from a garden that was obviously managed just by us to a much larger operation. Now, the reason I'm telling you all of this is because I don't ever want anybody to look at what we're doing and be discouraged about what they're doing. If you look at our farm and the amount of food that we're growing and the amount of gardening that we're doing, you have to consider the fact that we're an entire family that works on this. This is what we do, and we do have outside help from like Ben Turn. So don't look at my garden and go, how does she do all of that? I can't even keep my little garden in my backyard alive. You really shouldn't compare yourself to what you see on the internet, because it's really just not a great thing to do. I have to remind myself that as well. Whenever I watch other people and think, man, they seem to be doing this with such ease, and I see the struggle that I have, and I feel the exhaustion that I feel, and you can't compare yourself. You don't see the whole picture. So that's why I tell you that. But this year we're doing something a little different, which I think is really cool. It's the season for getting the fall garden in. And I am finishing this book, Feeling Spread a little bit thin, bringing in all of the summer harvest and putting it up, as we've like tripled our garden this year. So it's way more than I've ever had to deal with. And then it's time to put in the next wave in the fall. And honestly, I don't know what this fall is going to be like. You know, people are talking about the possibility of shutdowns again. The schools seem really unsure about what they're going to do. And basically, we sat down and talked about it, our family, Ben Turn, and we were like, you know, I think we should just plant. I mean, it looks like we could be having a lot of time to be here. We're probably not going to be doing any traveling. So let's just plant all the space that we have and grow food, because, you know, it seems like a good thing to do. But since I'm at capacity, I basically said to Ben, what do you think about planting this? I'll give you free rein, and you can make the choices for the spaces. And you know, we ran through a lot of ideas together. I went through our seeds and narrowed it down to what we still had time to grow. So I'm still kind of guiding him through this, but my hope here is to give him the freedom to really learn. My long-term goal for Roots and Refuge is for this to be an education center. Probably not on this property, but I envision a big education center where people can come, and we really do have an intern program where we can have the capacity to bring a lot of people in and do workshops and classes and teach online through books and all of that stuff. Like, I am passionate about teaching people to grow food. I really did not come out here to pick this many peppers, but there are so many of them, and they're starting to change color, so I need to go ahead and pick them. Another thing that needs to be processed. There are a lot of peppers out here. So this fall, we get to tour and walk through and watch grow the plan that Ben is putting into action. And this morning we discussed this back garden area where we grew squash and okra through the spring and summer. And he actually decided that we're gonna do like a Three Sisters garden there, which is really awesome. I've talked about doing that for a long time. And he's pulling up that weed fabric. We're actually gonna do some corn and some sunflowers, and then pole beans and some different winter squashes around the bottom. I'm not 100% sure that we'll have time to get to harvest all of that. I know we'll definitely harvest beans. I know we'll definitely have blooming sunflowers. The winter squash, it'll be hit or miss. It just depends on how early the frost comes. We're doing this for learning. And like in a situation like this, I mean, we've already harvested so much food from our gardens this year, and a lot of people just wouldn't even plant a second wave. And they wouldn't try to plant these things again. So like literally there's zero risk in the situation. The very worst thing that could happen is we won't get anything and we wasted the seeds. And truly, you know, a few packs of seeds is worth the education for me of trying this, of seeing how it grows. I think that we will get enough food to justify the cost of a handful of packages of seeds. Guys, look at these tomatoes. They're so tall. We haven't added any other support up there. They're just growing straight up. We'll see. They might start falling over here pretty soon. All right. Time to get to work. Today's gonna be one of those days where I just give you an overview of what I'm doing in the kitchen. I did make a thorough video last week about the salsa that I'm making today if you wanna check that out. When I do stuff like this, I get a lot of questions about things. When I talk about the things, I get a lot of comments about don't make it about the things. Here's the bottom line. If you're gonna be doing a lot of processing, nice tools make the job easier. I did a lot of processing and a lot of kitchen stuff for a long time without nice tools. So don't get discouraged if you can't purchase the best of the best. I always try to share tips about how to go around having these things if you can't get them, but they do make it easier. That's just good tools make jobs easier. So I have this Weston tomato strainer mill, and you put the tomatoes in here. This is my first year with this, and it definitely makes the process easier of taking plain raw tomatoes and getting them into a form where they can be packed into jars and canned. If you don't have a mill, I showed you guys the other day about freezing the tomatoes so that their skins come off really easily by just coring and scoring them. That's an option, but this just kind of takes that step out for me. I am getting some tomatoes ready to go in the oven to roast. I got a lot of questions about my stoneware that you guys have been seeing since we've been spending more time in the kitchen. This is Pampered Chef stoneware. This pan right here, you can see how dark and seasoned it is. I've had this thing for about 13 years now, so me and this pan have been through some stuff together. I've also got like bakeware things like this. I had a lot of people asking me about links to that, and I called my friend Samantha, who is a Pampered Chef consultant. I asked her for a link that I could give you guys to be able to buy these pans. I don't care what you say about the business model for a company like Pampered Chef. If I have been using a pan solidly for over a decade and it's still working well for me, I am completely comfortable in recommending that to people. So the link for that stuff will be down below as well. What's up, Bruce? Bruce scratched his eye last night, and I was really worried about him that I was gonna have to take him to the vet, but he's better this morning. It's the next day. My day got really derailed yesterday. I did make salsa, and I did can some tomatoes, but we had to reschedule my photo session for the book because it had rained, and the photographer had some just a last minute opening yesterday. So we moved it. Whenever those of you who have pre-ordered the book get it, there will be photos, and I'll be wearing the shirt I was wearing yesterday, and you'll be like, hey, I remember this day. I made a pretty good dent in my tomato box though, check that out. And just ignore this. Here is this year's canning. Up here. At some point, I'm gonna get my life together and be able to actually make some good canning content. I really do, I really try. But yesterday, my multitasking skills could only go so far. I got the stuff done, but I didn't get any video of it. I've got all these seeds out here. Sitting in the front of this window, I'm trying not to look like a ghost. I'm so fair. People ask me all the time. Some people are like, you don't work in that garden. There's no way, you're too pale. I'm like, I do. I don't work in the garden during the middle of the day because I would be red as a lobster. So I've got my seed caddies up here. Aren't these beautiful? They're so pretty. Our viewer Pete did such a great job on those. They're such a blessing. I just smile every time I look at them. Like I said, Ben Turn's really taken the reins on the second summer planting. And man, he's grabbing hold of it. I'm so proud of him. I don't know, he's one of those people that like really loves to take ownership of things. I didn't say this yesterday, I've already edited the first half of this video, but when Ben Turn called us, like, he wanted to come out because he wanted to learn how to homestead. He wanted to help, and then, you know, it led to a job here for him. But the thing that has been really cool to me is like he was a homeschool kid. And it's really awesome to me and encouraging to me as a homeschool mom that like that model of education of like figure out a way to get your hands on something to learn. It was just very validating to see a young adult like kind of continuing in that model of learning, like, hey, can I have an opportunity to learn here? He's taken the reins on the second summer planting. I think I may actually have him, he doesn't love being in videos, but I think I may have him do a video with me if he's up for it, of sharing with you guys what it is that he's doing everywhere. Of course, we've talked about it extensively, but I think it would be cool to let him share with you guys kind of some of the decisions that he's made and what he's decided to plant. And also, we're getting ready for seed starting. So that's coming up. That's what all of this is. I told you guys what all I'm planning on planting. And we've been getting the spaces ready. So I'll be sharing that with you guys really soon. My hope is to get all of those planted, hopefully by the end of the month. And I cannot believe that this is the time of year that we're at already. I'm getting multiple questions about seed starting, and one of the big questions, and of course this is when the fall garden is a new idea to somebody, this is one of the big struggles that people come to. They're like, well, how am I supposed to plant a fall garden? All of my summer stuff is currently growing and producing well. That's why I'm starting all of these things from seed, because that gives me 8 more weeks that they can grow indoors and get to a point of being ready to be put out. And by the mid to end of September, a lot of the things that are currently at peak are going to be tapering off. And so like my tomatoes at that point are going to be kind of like probably dying back from sickness, at least the ones that are outdoors. And like the green beans that are there, they're already starting to peter out, and just different things like that. I've already started pulling cucumbers out, and that way, as I'm pulling things out of the garden that are finishing, I've got something that's already started and growing in the house or under grow lights or wherever it is you're going to start it. You could even start it in containers outside, just like on a porch or whatever, as long as it's pretty well lit. You can do your seed starting there for the fall because it's warm outside and there's lots of light, so you can do that. But that way I've got those little sprouts in containers, and it also helps because this is the highest time of pest pressure through the entire year. Like the pests are full swing right now, and seedlings might have a harder time in the garden getting past their tender little seedling stage. Whereas if I've got them protected, I can move them out there once they're 8 weeks. The pests will be waning, there will be space in the garden, and that's why I'm doing this stuff as seed starting instead of trying to directly sow it. This is inevitably the time of year where the zeal for the garden in a lot of people sort of starts tapering off. Just from a perspective, like analytics perspective, you know, in the spring, like we have a huge spike of like new people, and you know, basically we have a lot of people who are gardening for the first time, or they're learning and they're finding us for the first time, because a lot of people do a spring garden. But the end of the gardening season does not have to be right now. When the heat is coming in and your garden's getting crispy and the weeds are getting crazy, like it really doesn't have to be. If you are committed to saying, you know, I'm okay with just doing a spring garden, I'm tired, I don't want to keep doing this through the fall and into the early parts of the winter, if you're in a place where you can do that, like it's okay, no condemnation on my part, like I understand that. But if you are a person that is like, man, I don't want to wait for next year, my garden's dying back and I'm bummed, I don't want to wait for next year to grow again, definitely look into it, because truly, like the fall garden, like the late summer and into the fall garden, it's very, very different than the spring and summer. Spring and summer is like, it's just intense, it's super fast growth, it's fruit. This is where you get a massive amount of volume, as far as, you know, I've got like tons and tons of tomatoes, tons of peppers, you're having to pick it all at once and do something with it. But the fall garden is different, because a lot of the stuff that you're growing in the fall are leafy greens and roots. And, you know, maybe in that second summer planting, you're looking at more fruits like squash and cucumbers and green beans and things like that. So there can still be more volume and harvest, but when you start getting into that cool weather, the garden is just a completely different thing. I've heard from so many people over the last few years of really championing the fall garden. I've had so many people come and say, I didn't even know you could do this, or I had never thought that this was an option, but I love it. So many people tell me that they grew a fall garden for the first time and they're like, wow, this is so relaxing, it's so restful, you're continuing that education, you're continuing to learn to grow. Remember, one of the things you're growing in this process is you, the gardener. So like, this is another opportunity to do that. Thank you guys so much for hanging out with me today. I'm sorry I didn't have more kitchen stuff to show you, but there's a lot more of that coming. I still got a lot of tomatoes to put up. Thanks again, I bless you. Until next time.